Uh, Thumbs up. Hi, everybody. This is Spoken World Online, week number 32. And as always, it's just a delight to be here and see everybody. And so many people who are now my friends. I'm very pleased with that. Uh, and I'm going to read something here on early literary delight of mine from the Roarshock page, volume 1, number 12. The newsstand. I have been recollecting the roots of my interest and involvement in worlds fantastic a lot recently. Imaginary doors were flung wide for me, I have to update this, 5 decades ago, through the agency of Professor Tolkien's Middle Earth, Lewis's Narnia, the television worlds of Star Trek, Dark Shadows, and The Prisoner, music of the Beatles and the San Francisco Sound, Marvel's superhero comics and underground comics like Zap and Last Gasp Eco Funnies, Roy Thomas and Barry Smith's version of Conan the Barbarian for Marvel introduced me to sword and sorcery fiction. A year or so later, DC came out with their own title, Sword and Sorcery, featuring Fafford and the Grey Mouser. I'm not sure whether or not the comic book was my first meeting with the twain, because around the same time I got my membership in the Science Fiction Book Club, which featured Lynn Carter's Flashing Swords anthologies, among many other treasures. Editions of the John Carter of Mars books, Frazetta illustrations. Down the rack from the comic books at the convenience store where I used to pick up my new Marvels were the genre magazines, Descendants of the Pulps. My very favorite of these quickly became Fantastic Stories, edited by Ted White. In that magazine, I read many things which changed me forever, including first publication of several Fafford and the Grey Mouser stories. Also, Fritz Leiber wrote a regular column for Fantastic called Fantasy Books. Those columns were an elementary part of my education. If you can ever dig up any old copies of Fantastic Stories, do so. They are full of all sorts of treats, and Fritz's columns are very informative and still well worth a read, even after all these years. And I'm also going to read you one poem today. This is from my book, First Hours of a Rainy Day and Other Poems by D.A. Wilson. And this one, you can, the game is, if you can figure out when I wrote it based on the reference to the governor of California at the time. This is called The Good Mr. Wilson. There is a poetic sensibility that Mr. Wilson knows. By Mr. Wilson, I mean me, and not the bad, mean governor of state California. That sensibility, listening to the dead and smoking redway weed. What? I psycho-hallucinogenicized the grainy grain of the mold on grain. I drank much fermented grain. As the poem is interrupted by my wife's question, I am not colorblind. I have no short-term memory. The shirt is blue. Beer, we called it when I was a lad in the hot fields of Concord. But I never slept with C, only Martinez, and occasionally Pleasant Hill. I scored in Berkeley and San Francisco. Silamar, Om Mani Padme Om. I had to tuck in the family for the night and do the dishes and smoke another bong hit and entertain the cat.
35 people in spoken word.
And that was the end of the poem. I have no short-term memory. What? The lines of Hayes, at least a zillion hours of Grateful Dead tapes and knowledge of the universe. Hey, cat, get off the kitchen table. Second poem since Saturday night. First poems in plus a year. A poetic sensibility, Mr. Wilson. A poetic sensibility. Thanks, everybody, as always.